Hello and welcome to the Connie Pillich Show. I'm your host, Connie Pillich. As spring blooms, many of us decide to shed our cars and pull our bikes out of the storage, dust off the cobwebs, and take them for a spin. And why wouldn't we? With the beautiful weather, it just makes us want to do that. And many of you didn't know, but May is called Bike Month. And here to talk about all things about Bike Month and bicycling in Cincinnati is Nern Ostendorf, the Executive Director of Queen City Bike. So welcome to the show, Nern.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you could make it. So let's talk about bikes. And well, first of all, let's talk about the Queen City Bike Club.
We're actually an advocacy group. So bike clubs typically go on rides and do more, on the road riding. And we like to do the behind the scenes work that makes it safer, more accessible, and hopefully more enjoyable for people to ride.
And how long have you been involved with Queen City Bike?
I've been the director of Queen City Bike for almost 2 years now, and it's gone by in a heartbeat.
And how did you get into biking? Have you always been a bicyclist?
Yeah, my dad and I used to ride our bikes down to Finley Market on Sundays, and I was riding a lot as a kid, but I really became a bike commuter when I moved to Chicago when I went to school. And I don't know if you've been there, but it's an incredibly easy city to bike in. And It's flat, yeah. So when I came back to Cincinnati, I brought my love of biking back, and I really feel honored that I get to, bring what I love to the city that I love and make it a better place. So,
well, it seems a little bit like everybody knows about riding a bike, and a whole bunch of us get to learn to do this when we're kids. But why would we need an advocacy group in Cincinnati?
What we really like to focus on is increasing our accessibility. Right now, for a lot of people to ride, it's a very much, I have to take my bike, put it on the car, go to the trail, because that's the only place that I feel safe and comfortable riding. And what we really like to advocate for is that the bicycle is recognized as a healthy and very useful and accommodating choice for transportation. So that means that's...
As opposed to just recreation.
Yeah, which we love. Anything that has to do with recreation we love too, but in this era when, the car dominates our transportation choices, it's all that time, hours and hours a week that we're sedentary, that we're sitting behind the wheel of a car, we're sitting in traffic, when we could be having the most wonderful experience ever of riding your bike somewhere. But we don't have the infrastructure for it right now, really. It's kind of an intense environment out there for those of us who are brave enough to want to ride everywhere. So,
well, are bikes allowed on roads in the city and in the community?
Yes, they are. And actually, almost every city road, it's legal to ride a bike on. There's a couple exceptions. I think Columbia Parkway is an example of one where it's, bordering on highways, so it's prohibited for bikes to ride on it. But pretty much every other street is legal. There are 55-mile-an-hour roads that it's legal to ride a bike on in the city, as long as, they're designed properly.
And what if there's no bike lane?
The League of American Bicyclists recommend that you ride in the center of the lane, because this means that that a car needs to change lanes to pass you, which is the safest way to encounter a bicyclist on the road. If the cyclist is riding, like kind of hugging that right side curb, that makes them vulnerable to that car, thinking that they can sneak by in that lane and therefore put you at risk of getting hit by that car.
Let's talk about safe bicycling.
Of course, yeah.
What should people be on the lookout for? I mean, a lot of us haven't ridden our bikes in years.
There are a lot of really great resources available. Two that I think are essential are the OKI's bike map and your good old Metro map. So because a lot of times our roads aren't designed well enough for you to bike an entire segment, or say that you live a far way away from where you want to work and it's not really feasible for you to ride your bike 15 miles both ways. So what do? You can park and ride, You can take a bus part of the way and bike the last segment. And the bike map, the OKI bike map, gives you a really great road map for finding the calmer, lower volume streets that still connect to get you where you need to go. And that's a really different style of transportation than what we're used to with a car. You know, when you get in a car and you're going across town, you think, where's the nearest on-ramp? I'm getting on the highway, and then I'm going to get off the highway, and I'm going to be where I need to be. Bicyclists or bike commuters tend to have incredibly good navigation skills because they know all the side streets in town, and they can
do all the shortcuts.
All the shortcuts, and you know, you'll find that sometimes the other thing that you have to think about in this city, of course, is geography.
Because of all of our hills.
Yeah. And
yes.
What savvy bike commuters often do is find the flattest routes possible. And there's a number of really good ones around. But sometimes those are a little bit longer, but they end up, you know, working out better for a bike commuter.
How do you take your bike on the bus?
It's really easy. Your bike rides for free. And there's a rack on the front of the bus that you will pull down and fit the bike in the rack. And there's a little lever that you put over the front wheel. And our Metro drivers are, I would say in general, incredibly gracious and will help you with any questions you have. And if you say, I'm putting my bike on the bus for the first time and I'm a little nervous that I didn't get it right, I'm sure they will walk you through the process. Don't be afraid of just asking for a little bit of help. That's what they're hired to do. And we've been working a lot with our local transit authorities just because we're in this together. Buses and bikes go together so well, and they really expand. You know, if you're a cyclist without a bus system, you can get a lot fewer places, in the same way that if you're a bus rider but you don't have that bike at the end of the ride, you can expand your territory a whole lot.
So let's talk about some of the programs and projects that Queen City Bike has worked on.
Sure. One of my favorites is the Queen City Blinkies program.
Blinkies?
Blinkies, yes. Like blink.
Okay.
The Blinkies program was started this past fall in effort to protect cyclists riding at night. And what we did is we asked for donations to provide free sets of bike lights for Greater Cincinnati residents. So we put out the call, raised money for the program almost overnight, which demonstrates how important it is to, our local citizens here, and installed 1,000 sets of bike lights on the bikes of Greater Cincinnati residents throughout the fall.
That reminds me that as I get my bike out this spring, I need to replace the batteries on mine.
It's really important.
Lights.
And even if you don't think you're going to be riding after dark, it's always a good idea to have them on there because you never know.
It's a safety issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really important safety issue.
Well, can we talk about safety on bikes? Besides having lights?
Yeah, besides having lights I think is very important. I recommend wearing a helmet, but of course that's up to individual choice. It's really important to be a predictable cyclist. So what does that mean to be a predictable cyclist? If you're an adult, I really recommend riding in the street when you feel comfortable. There might be a couple places where, the traffic speed is too high, or, you're getting a little, cars are getting a little aggressive around you and you might want to dip up onto the sidewalk. But if it's, a generally calm street that, cars are recognizing you and respecting you, it's really safer for you to be in the street. And the reason for that is if you're riding on the sidewalk, you're kind of out of the driver's peripheral vision and you're vulnerable to getting hit to cars pulling in and out of driveways. So
that's right.
The perception is that it's safer on the sidewalk, but actually you really are putting yourself at higher risk by riding on the sidewalk. It's, you pretty much would follow the laws of if you were in a car. And that's the best way to think about it. If you're going to make a left-hand turn, you're going to slowly merge into the left-hand lane, signal when you're going to make that turn. And a lot of it is about confidence and saying that I belong here. this is my space too, and taking your time and double checking. There's a couple terms in the biking world we like to call the left and the right hook. And the left hook is when a car is making a left-hand turn and cuts you off. So you always have to be looking for those cars that might not see you. So it also, when you get a cyclist and put them behind the wheel of a car, they are extremely defensive drivers because they're always feeling like they're practically invisible. So,
well, state law does protect bicycles, and in fact, it says that you are entitled to drive on the road just like cars.
That's true, and a lot of people don't know that. You know, all the time when I'm riding around, I'll get well, it's actually less than it used to be, but I have gotten many of get on the sidewalk. Why are you on the road when we have every right to be there. So a lot of it is education too. I think it's one thing that I would hope that we can accomplish in the next couple of years is to get some bicycle education in our driver's ed courses.
Oh.
Yeah, because you think
that
about
might be
it,
something a state legislator
yeah,
could
what
do.
do you know?
Write that down. I will actually write it down.
But you know, you think about it, if it's the same as it was when I was going through it and got my Ohio driver's license when I was a teenager. We get educated on how to interact with pedestrians. We get educated on how to interact with motorcycles. We get educated on how to interact with Amish buggies. But we do not get educated on how to interact with bicyclists in the roadway.
Okay.
So it's something that's really important that I think is essential to making people understand that, you know, we belong on the roads and how it's really safe, especially the more education you get.
So let's talk about being a driver on the street in Cincinnati, and there's a bicyclist. Tell me some things to know.
Well, first of all, to treat a bicycle as you would any other slow-moving vehicle. So just imagine that bicycle is a mail truck or something. Slow down. Look for the lane next to you. If it's clear, you may pass. You can change in the next lane over. It's the law in the city of Cincinnati to give a bicyclist 3 feet to pass them. So you're really endangering the cyclist if you try and pass closer than that, because you can clip a cyclist on their handlebars.
And the cyclist is always going to lose.
The cyclist is always going to lose, and which is again why it's really important to have lights and a helmet and to be visible and to be predictable. Just to be aware. Cyclists are everywhere, and a lot of times people say, you know, I'll be going around doing advocacy work and people will tell me, well, I never see cyclists out. And I ask them, well, are you looking for them? Because I see them everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this 3-foot law. What happens if you're on a one lane going each way and there's a double yellow line? So there's someone in front of you and they're either in the middle of the lane or they're over to the right. How are you going to get 3 feet? Do you have to follow them until you get to a wider part of the road? You
don't. And actually, it's been inciting somewhat of a national debate, I want to say. We are putting out a billboard this May with that very message, and the roadway that is displayed is one-way traffic in both directions with the double yellow line in between, and it is legal for you to go into that oncoming traffic lane if it is clear to pass that bicyclist.
Even though there's a double yellow line?
Even though there's a double yellow line.
And that's good for any slow-moving vehicle, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But for when you're passing a bike, you got to make sure there's 3 feet between you and the bike. Well, that seems easy enough.
It's a common sense measure, you know, and really it does involve participation on both the bicyclist and the car driver.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the legislation that we're talking about at the state. So we talked about the 3-foot rule, and that's a law in the city of Cincinnati. And there's a movement to introduce it at the state level. I've had that bill drafted, and one of my colleagues, Representative Mike Henney, is going to be introducing it for me. For political reasons, he's going to be the one to introduce it. It's his turn to get a bill passed.
All right.
So he's introducing that. So the 3-foot law. But there are a couple other things that have been brought to my attention I want to share with you. So one is the definition of bicycle. It's not just two wheels anymore, is it?
Right, no. You know, if you can pedal it, I've seen everything. Recumbent bikes, recumbent trikes. Recumbent bikes are the ones that look like you're sitting in a lounge chair.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that. There are, for parents and children, there are a lot of different unique bicycles with more than two wheels. There's one called a tag-along where you attach the kid's bike to the back of your bike, so they're kind of, you know, hanging on behind. They have their own
So mom
pedals.
does all the power?
Actually,
all the pedaling?
the kid can do some of the powering too. Yeah, can. Being the important part. There are, I don't know, have you seen any tall bikes out around?
No, I've not.
There are some downtown.
What does that mean?
It's when you weld a bike frame on top of another bike frame, and you have to kind of propel the bike forward and climb up on top of it and ride it. It's taller than most cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've also heard of a four-wheeled bike.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you know, bicycle by its root definition would be two wheels.
Yes.
But we did just change the law in Ohio to remove the number of wheels in the definition of bicycle, just to accommodate all these different vehicles that are pedal-powered, human-powered, that may look a little funky, but we want people to be able to ride them just like they would a bike.
Yeah, and it really brings in, I think it brings in an ability component, because the way that I've seen this most applicable is for people with disabilities. They often have, like, I've seen a hand cycle that's incredible that has three wheels, and the crank is done with your hands. So if you don't have the ability to pedal with your feet, but you can do it with your hands, you can still ride a bicycle.
That's neat. And there's one other little intricacy of the law that we're working on that Representative Hennies and I have worked on together. It's for the situation when you approach a traffic signal, and it's one of those that has a sensor. So anytime a car pulls up, that's the only time the light changes. But when you're a bike or a small motorcycle, you might not trigger that sensor, and so you're going to be sitting there at that red light waiting
Very familiar with that.
and waiting and waiting. So what the bill will do is allow you to treat that as a malfunctioning stoplight.
That's excellent.
So that you don't have to wait there for 4 or 5 hours. That when it's safe to do so, you can proceed with caution.
Wow, that's great.
So that should help a little bit, and that should help move traffic along. And who knows how far back you have to be before the sensor won't sense you. So we want to make sure that these bikes and motorcycles and trikes and whatever they are, all these different pedal-powered vehicles can get through. So that's some things we're working on at the state level, and I have high hopes that some of these things will get through. So let's talk about what's going on with Bike Month. This is the month of May. This is exciting. Yes. May is springtime. Everybody gets their bikes out, like I just said. People either start jogging or riding their bikes in May. So what's happening in Cincinnati for Bike Month?
Oh, there's so much going on. We talked about taking it a little bit more low-key this year, and everyone else who was excited about Bike Month kind of proved us wrong. We have over 100 events planned for this Bike Month.
Oh my. And
yes.
How do we find out about these events?
You can go to our calendar, which is at queencitybike.org, and we're also going to have a summarized version of events in the May edition of the City Beat publication, and we're going to have posters around town. So.
And are you on Facebook too?
Yes, we are on Facebook. But I would say go to the calendar and you'll see everything that we have to offer. So there are trail cleanup days, there are themed rides. There's going to be the second annual bike prom again this year, where everyone dresses up in formal wear and goes on a bike ride. There's going to be a music ride, which involves riding your bike with kazoos to Music Hall, which is going to be really fun. I'm trying to think of some of the other fun ones. We have a whole bunch of special events organized for the Bike to Work Week, which is May 13th through the 17th.
Awesome. Well, Nern, is there anything you'd like to add, such as how to contact Queen City Bike again, and
Yes.
anything else you'd like to add before we go?
You know, if you want to become an advocate in your neighborhood, if you want to, you know, some sort of really fun projects that we have are, if your neighborhood street is used as a cut-through, we can talk about how to maybe make that not happen. Okay. Or if you want to put bike lanes in your neighborhood, you should get in contact with us, www.queencitybike.org. And I'm Nern. You can find my email on there and send me a personal email, and I will write you back, and we can work on a great project together. Basically, anything that has to do with bike riding, whether it's on trails or in schools or in your neighborhood, we would love to help you out with.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Nern Ostendorf is the Executive Director of Queen City Bike. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with my legislative update.
How many times have we heard someone comment that our society today is overprotective of our children? That may be true, but it's sure hard to argue with statistics. The American Academy of Pediatrics has identified thousands of injuries suffered by children each year that could have been prevented. Last year alone, more than 50,000 kids were injured while riding a bike without a helmet. In fact, the AAP estimates that fewer than 20% of children in Ohio wear a helmet when riding their bike, scooter, rollerblades, or skateboard. That's why I'm excited to help promote the American Academy of Pediatrics' Put a Lid on It awareness campaign. You can learn more today by visiting their Facebook page at facebook.com/bikehelmetsafety. Parents, of course, are the best role models for children, so please join me in this effort. Lead by example and help educate our kids about wearing a bike helmet.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying tuned for my legislative update. Unfortunately, debate about most everything in the state legislature has fallen to a disgustingly low level of discourse. GOP members have publicly insulted others with whom they disagree. Procedures have been contorted, and Democratic attempts to correct them were blocked. Debate is often stymied. For instance, as we debated the budget bill on the House floor, Speaker Batchelder, who controls the proceedings, prohibited Democrats from debating several times. A microphone was even turned off mid-paragraph. Democrats were left wondering what country we were in. Now, I am an unabashed fan of the First Amendment. Our rights to free speech, public debate, petition our government to redress our grievances, these should be given great regard. So to cut off debate in the chamber designed precisely for that, it's a sham of our democracy. As you may already know, the budget is by far our most expansive bill. The 138,500-line bill dictates how the state will operate for the next 2 years. Last month, I told you about the current budget bill and its provisions that would increase state spending, expand Medicaid, raise sales taxes to pay for a tax cut primarily for the wealthy, and retool the school funding formula to perpetuate the underfunding of our public schools. At the time of my last update, the budget bill was still in the House Finance Committee. Since then, the committee has substantially altered the bill. Some important changes. The portions relating to access to health care seem to be generating the most excitement. The bill reduces access for poor women to basic health services, cancer screenings, family planning, and contraceptives. It eliminates competitive bidding for these services. Not surprisingly, advocates for women's health across the state are up in arms, as well as baffled about this move. The revised budget also removes the provision to expand Medicaid. The support for Medicaid is equally strong and comes from health professionals, hospitals, business leaders, the Chamber of Commerce, faith leaders, and social service agencies. The Ohio Veterans Advisory Committee, which is led by the Director of the Department of Veterans Services, supports the expansion of Medicaid. The expansion would help 26,000 Ohio veterans obtain health care. Newspapers across the state, including our own Cincinnati Enquirer, endorse the expansion of Medicaid. But it appears that a fractured Republican caucus in the state legislature is being held hostage by the right wing of the party. These members, according to the Cleveland Plain Dealer, fear political fallout. In other words, they may lose their next primary election if they support the measure. House Democrats responded by introducing a single-item bill that would expand Medicaid. The revised budget also removes the sales tax provision, another idea vehemently opposed by the business community. The governor's proposal to retool our school funding formula was also revamped. Given that only a few days were spent on this brand new method, it falls far short of taking care of our kids. You know, I have knocked on over 24,000 doors in my district. I talk to people in every neighborhood across my district, and by far the number one issue in every single neighborhood, support public education. And this budget falls far short of that. Unfortunately, even the revamped method fails to restore sufficient funding to our schools. Local schools continue to struggle with what the legislature gives them, and many are turning to local taxpayers to help prevent further cuts in programs and further increases in class size. The budget, which increases spending by $7 billion, passed out of the House on April 18th, largely along party lines, and moved to the Ohio Senate. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you'll be able to stop by my next open office hours and tell me what's on your mind. Monday, May 6th from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. at the Evendale Starbucks, 2520 Cunningham Road. And on Monday, May 20th, this time from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at the European Cafe, 9450 Montgomery Road in beautiful downtown Montgomery. I hope to see you there. I'm Connie Pillich. Thanks for joining me.